October 15th, 1990, Monday, 9:47 a.m. The electric saw shrieked as it bit into the concrete wall of St. Mary's Hospital basement. Foreman Samuel Crawford wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a gray streak of cement dust on his skin, and shut off the tool. In the sudden silence, water could be heard dripping somewhere deep in the basement. The old building on Congress Street was being prepared for major renovations, and the workers were supposed to remove partitions that didn't appear on any blueprints. "Steve, come here," Crawford called to his partner. "Something weird." Behind the false wall, they discovered a small room, no more than 30 square feet. Concrete floor, bare brick walls, no windows, and 17 stainless steel medical containers with lids arranged in 3 neat rows. Each container had a number painted in white, from 1 to 17. Samuel opened the first container. He vomited right on the floor. Inside, floating in cloudy liquid, was an infant, tiny, perfectly preserved as if sleeping. Formaldehyde or alcohol had preserved the body so well it seemed any second the baby would open its eyes. Samuel Crawford, who'd been through Vietnam and seen things he tried not to remember, squatted down, leaned against the cold wall, and lit up with trembling hands. He opened 3 more containers. Same thing everywhere. Infants. All boys. When the police arrived, they found something else in the basement. In the corner behind the containers lay a worn spiral notebook. On the cover, in childish handwriting, "Chemistry Notes, 7th grade, Linda Miller." Inside was a log, neat medical entries on 42 pages, dates, times, weight, measurements, and the same phrase repeated: intracranial hemorrhage, fatal outcome. All dates were from fall 1981. September 1st through October 27th. 18 entries. 17 boys. Senior District Attorney Investigator Carl Anderson, assigned to the case, first requested all documentation from St. Mary's Hospital for 1981 from the archives. The documents confirmed the notebook entries. 17 cases of infant mortality. All boys. All within the first 24 hours after birth. All from intracranial hemorrhage. When Anderson and the investigation team arrived at the former hospital building to arrest Chief of Obstetrics Dr. Serafina Keller, they found her in her 3rd-floor office. She'd hanged herself with a clothesline tied to an old cast-iron radiator. On the desk lay a note written in firm, calligraphic handwriting. "Forgive us. We meant well." 9 years ago, September 1st, 1981, Tuesday. Catherine Hart woke at 5 a.m. from nausea. She climbed out of bed, trying not to wake her husband, David, and tiptoed to the bathroom. Bent over the toilet, she thought about having first shift today, about the long day ahead at St. Mary's Hospital, about how morning sickness should have passed by the 4th month, but somehow hadn't. Catherine was 24 years old. Had worked as a nurse in the maternity ward for 3 years. Good job, steady, babies, young mothers, happy faces. Sometimes there were complications, of course, premature births, weak babies, problems. But mostly everything went well. St. Mary's Hospital was considered one of the best in Portland. Wives of city officials, military officers, and university professors tried to get in here. Chief of Obstetrics, Dr. Serafina Keller, had run the maternity ward for 23 years. A tough woman, demanding, but fair. She'd been an Army nurse in World War II, seen death, blood, suffering. After the war, she became a doctor, got her medical degree, built a career. She never had children of her own. The war took her husband, and she never remarried. The hospital was her life. These thousands of babies born within these walls were her children. Catherine got to the hospital by 6:30. The September morning was damp and chilly, with fine drizzle. Portland greeted autumn in its own way. Gray, wet, with the smell of the harbor and fallen leaves. At the entrance, security guard Joe McDonald, a veteran who'd worked at the hospital as long as Dr. Keller, nodded hello. "Kathy, Go to the chief's office, he said. She told me when you arrive, come straight to her. Catherine was surprised. Dr. Keller had never called her to her office. Had something happened? She went up to the third floor and knocked on the chief's door. Come in. Dr. Keller sat behind a massive desk piled with folders and medical charts. The woman was almost 60, gray hair pulled into a strict bun, eyes showing the steely fatigue of someone who'd seen and knew much. She wore an impeccably white coat with a Healthcare Excellence Award pin on the lapel. Sit down, Hart. The chief indicated a chair. Coffee? No, thank you, Dr. Keller. How are you feeling? I heard you're expecting. Congratulations. Thank you. Everything's fine. Just some morning sickness, but that'll pass. Dr. Keller was silent, looking out the window where drizzle fell. Then she pulled a folder from her desk drawer. Catherine, I want to offer you participation in an important program. This is a federal program, strictly confidential. I chose you because you're a competent professional, responsible, and because you're about to become a mother yourself, and you understand the value of a child's life better than anyone. Catherine listened, not understanding where the chief was going. This is about medical research, Dr. Keller continued. Work that might save thousands of children's lives in the future. But this work requires a special approach, special courage. Are you ready to listen? Yes, of course. Catherine felt something tighten inside. Something in the chief's voice wasn't right. Something alarming. Our hospital is conducting special research. It's overseen directly by federal health agencies and other structures. I can't name them aloud, you understand. The research is aimed at studying causes of intracranial hemorrhage in newborns. It's one of the main causes of infant mortality. If we understand the mechanism, we can save children. I understand, Catherine said. But what does this have to do with me? The research needs biological material, needs samples. We work with children who won't survive anyway, those with severe pathologies incompatible with life. We give them, let's say, the opportunity to benefit medicine, help other children live. Something cold and heavy dropped in Catherine's stomach. She looked at the chief and didn't recognize her. You're saying you take children for experiments? No! Dr. Keller raised her voice, then collected herself. No, Hart. We don't take healthy children. We only work with those who are doomed, those who'll die in the first hours or days, understand? They'll die anyway, but their death can have meaning. What about the parents? We tell parents the truth. The baby died from intracranial hemorrhage. That's what it is. They get all the documents, can bury. Dr. Keller fell silent. Catherine, I understand this is difficult, but we'll save hundreds, thousands of lives in the future. This is important. This is national security. Catherine felt herself shaking. She wanted to get up and leave, wanted to scream, but the chief's words, national security, federal agencies, other structures, paralyzed her. In 1981 America, in the midst of the Cold War, you didn't argue with matters of national security. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Keep documentation, monitor the material, that's all. Nothing terrible, Catherine. You'll just record data, weight, height, time, everything as usual. For this, you'll receive an additional salary bonus and promotion to senior nurse, I promise. Senior nurse, better pay. Catherine and David lived in a small rented apartment, barely making ends meet. With a baby coming, it would be even harder. Promotion was a dream. I need to think, Catherine said. Think until tomorrow morning, Dr. Keller nodded. But remember, if you refuse, we'll find someone else, and you'll lose the opportunity to improve your family's life, and you'll lose my trust. I was counting on you, Catherine. Catherine left the office on wobbly legs. All day she worked mechanically, not understanding what she was doing. Before her eyes stood Dr. Keller with her words, "They'll die anyway." And also stood the promotion, a better life for their future baby, stability, security. That evening, lying next to David in their narrow bed, Catherine said nothing to him. Not about the research, not about the promotion. She just lay and stared into the darkness, hand on her belly where their child grew under her heart. September 2nd, 1981, Wednesday. The next morning, Catherine came to Dr. Keller. "I agree," she said. The chief nodded as if she'd never doubted the answer. "Good. Then listen carefully. Last night we delivered Mrs. Patricia Anderson's baby. Boy, 7 pounds, 1 ounce, 20.5 inches. Appeared healthy at first glance. But our doctors diagnosed severe intracranial hemorrhage, incompatible with life. The baby won't live through the day." "Are you sure?" Catherine asked. "Absolutely. 3 specialists examined him. It's certain." Dr. Keller handed Catherine a thin spiral notebook. "Here, this is your log. You'll record all information here. Date, time, measurements, no names, only numbers. This is baby number 1. Catherine took the notebook with trembling hands. On the cover was written, "Chemistry Notes, 7th grade, Linda Miller." An ordinary school notebook like everyone had. Inside were blank-lined pages. "When the baby dies, you must record time of death. Then prepare the body for preservation. I'll show you how. The material will be stored in a special room in the basement. Only you and I will have keys." "What about the parents?" "We'll tell the parents the baby died from hemorrhage. Issue a death certificate. They can bury him." Dr. Keller paused. "That is, they'll bury an empty casket. We'll put something in for weight. These are all technical details." Catherine felt sick. She grabbed the edge of the desk. "Catherine, pull yourself together," the chief said sharply. "If you can't handle this, I'll find someone else. But remember, this is a federal secret. If you tell anyone, you're facing prison, understand? Federal prison. And your baby will grow up without a mother." Catherine nodded. She understood. She was trapped with no way out. Boy number 1 died at 2:37 p.m. Catherine sat by his bassinet in the nursery and watched as he breathed more and more rarely. Tiny, pink, with chubby cheeks. He didn't cry, just lay with closed eyes and breathed, then stopped. Catherine opened the notebook and wrote with a trembling hand. 1. Date, September 2nd, 1981. Time of death, 14:37. Weight, 7 pounds, 1 ounce. Length, 20.5 inches. Diagnosis, intracranial hemorrhage. Dr. Keller showed her how to prepare the body, how to place it in the stainless steel container, how to pour in formaldehyde, how to close the lid and mark the number. All this was done in a small service room on the first floor where no one went. Then they went down to the basement. The basement was a frightening place. Low ceilings, bare concrete walls, smell of dampness and mold. Water dripped somewhere. Dr. Keller unlocked a door to a small room partitioned off by a false wall. Here it was clean, dry, smelled of bleach. In the corner stood a shelf. "Put it here," the chief said. "Baby number 1. Catherine placed the container on the bottom shelf. On the lid, the number was marked in white paint. 1. When they went back upstairs, Catherine locked herself in the bathroom and cried for 20 minutes. Then washed her face with cold water, straightened her uniform, and went back to work. She still had half a shift. That evening, she came home. David greeted her with a smile. "How was your day, Kathy?" "Fine," she lied. "Just tired." That night, she didn't sleep. She lay thinking about boy number 1, about his mother, Patricia Anderson, who'd been told in the morning that her baby died, about how this woman cried, clutching emptiness to her chest. about how her son was actually in the basement now, in a container, in formaldehyde. Catherine put her hand on her belly. Her own baby kicked from inside, alive, warm. She swore to herself. Whatever happened, she would protect him. She wouldn't let anyone harm him. But deep inside, Catherine already understood. She'd become an accomplice to something terrible, and there was no going back. September 15th, 1981, Tuesday. In 2 weeks, 4 more entries appeared in the notebook. Boys number 2, 3, 4, and 5. All intracranial hemorrhage. All died within the first 24 hours. All now stood in the basement in steel containers. Catherine learned not to think. She came to work, did her duties, recorded data in the notebook, prepared bodies, went down to the basement. All mechanically, without emotions. Otherwise it was impossible. Otherwise she would go mad. Morning sickness passed. Her belly rounded, became visible under her uniform. Colleagues congratulated her, asked if she was expecting a boy or a girl. Catherine smiled and said she wanted a boy. Then went to the basement and looked at 5 containers with boys who didn't survive. But something began to bother her. She noticed a strange pattern. All 5 boys were from first-time mothers. All 5 were born completely healthy, at least it seemed so, and all 5 died within 24 hours from intracranial hemorrhage. Catherine wasn't a doctor, but she'd worked at the hospital long enough to know intracranial hemorrhage in newborns was rare. 1, maximum 2 cases per 100 births. But here were 5 cases in 2 weeks. It was too many. One evening, when Dr. Keller left, Catherine went into the chief's office. She knew where the keys to the medical archive lay. She needed to look at the medical charts of these 5 children, look at diagnoses, specialists' conclusions. She found the charts, opened the first, boy number 1, read doctor's notes. The diagnosis indeed was intracranial hemorrhage. Prognosis extremely unfavorable. Signature of neonatologist Dr. Thompson. Signature of neurologist Dr. Wilson. Signature of Dr. Keller herself. Catherine opened the second chart. Same thing, same signatures. Third chart. Fourth. Fifth. Everything identical. Everything too smooth. Catherine returned the charts and left the office. She had a strange feeling, as if she'd seen something but couldn't understand what exactly. Something wasn't right. Something very wrong. The next day, during lunch break, Catherine deliberately stayed in the doctor's lounge. She wanted to hear conversations, catch something. Neonatologist Dr. James Thompson sat by the window drinking coffee. Catherine sat down next to him. "Dr. Thompson, can I ask something?" "Sure, Kathy, what's up?" "We've had a lot of intracranial hemorrhage cases lately. Is that normal?" Thompson raised his eyes to her. He was over 50, gray-haired, tired, with deep wrinkles around his eyes. "Why are you asking?" "Just curious. Seems like there were fewer such cases before." "Catherine," Thompson lowered his voice, "don't ask unnecessary questions, understand? This isn't your business. You do your job, and that's enough." "But—" "No buts," he said sharply. "Remember, what happens in this hospital stays in this hospital. I know they brought you into the program. I know you're keeping documentation. Do your job and don't think. Better for you and your baby." He stood and left the lounge. Catherine remained sitting, feeling everything inside turn cold. So Thompson knew too. So it wasn't just Dr. Keller. So all the doctors were involved. So this really was a big federal program. And so there was no way back. September 25th, 1981, Friday. Boy number 8 was born to Jennifer Harris at 3 a.m. Catherine was on night duty. The delivery went smoothly, no complications. The boy cried immediately, loudly, demandingly. They weighed him, 7 pounds, 11 ounces. Examined him, healthy. Put him in the bassinet. At 6 a.m. Dr. Keller came. She went to the nursery, examined the newborns, stopped at the Harris boy's bassinet. "This one," she told Catherine. "Number 8. Catherine felt something tear inside. She looked at the baby. He was sleeping, nose snuffling. Pink, healthy, completely normal. "Dr. Keller," Catherine said quietly. "He's healthy. I saw the delivery. He's completely healthy." "He has intracranial hemorrhage," the chief replied coldly. "I can see it in the symptoms. By evening, he'll be dead." "But—" "Hart, do your duties," Dr. Keller cut her off. "Or have you forgotten our agreement?" She left. Catherine remained standing by the bassinet. The boy opened his eyes, gray, clear eyes of a newborn that hadn't yet learned to focus. He looked at her, closed his eyes again, and fell asleep. Catherine left the room. She went to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and cried quietly. She understood. She finally understood. The children weren't dying from intracranial hemorrhage. They were being killed. She didn't know how, didn't know with what, but now she was certain. The diagnosis was given to healthy children. Then somehow they really died. And it wasn't natural death. By evening, boy number 8 really did die. Catherine sat by his bassinet and watched him fade. First he became lethargic, stopped crying. Then breathing became irregular. Then he stopped breathing altogether. Catherine wrote in the notebook, 8, date September 25th, 1981, time of death 1915, weight 7 pounds 11 ounces, length 21 inches, diagnosis intracranial hemorrhage. She couldn't anymore. She had to do something. But what? Go to the police? They'd put her away. This was a federal program. They had documents, doctor's signatures, everything legal. They'd declare her insane or a traitor, and her baby would be born in prison. Tell her husband? He worked as an engineer at a factory. What could he do? Nothing. Only endanger himself and their future child. Catherine was alone, absolutely alone in this nightmare. That night when she came home, David was already asleep. Catherine lay next to him, hugged him, and cried very quietly. Her baby kicked in her belly. Alive. Still alive. October 1st, 1981. Thursday. The notebook already had 11 entries. 11 boys in the basement, 11 mothers who'd been told their children died. Catherine walked like a ghost. She barely slept, barely ate. David got worried, took her to a doctor. The doctor said this happens with pregnant women, prescribed vitamins, and advised more rest. At work, Catherine tried to avoid Dr. Keller. She performed her duties mechanically without asking questions. She kept the notebook, prepared bodies, went down to the basement, all as required. But she observed. She tried to understand how exactly it happened, how they killed children. And one day, she saw. It was late evening. Catherine stayed late at work sorting documents. She heard the nursery door open, looked out. Dr. Keller entered the room. In her hands was a syringe. Catherine hid behind a cabinet. She watched through the crack. Dr. Keller approached the bassinet of boy number 12. This was Susan Mitchell's baby, born that morning. Completely healthy boy. The chief bent over the bassinet. She whispered something, then inserted the syringe needle into the infant's fontanelle. The boy jerked, whimpered quietly. Dr. Keller slowly pressed the syringe plunger, injecting the contents, then pulled out the needle, dabbed the injection site with cotton. All of this took less than a minute. Dr. Keller straightened, looked at the baby. The boy convulsed, groaned. The chief stood a bit longer, then turned and left the room. Catherine stood behind the cabinet, unable to move. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. She understood everything. Dr. Keller was injecting something into children's brains through the fontanelle, something that caused hemorrhage, or imitated it. The children really died from intracranial hemorrhage, but the hemorrhage was induced artificially. They were killing them. Healthy children, deliberately, one after another. Catherine ran out of the hospital. She ran through the dark Portland streets, stumbling, gasping, ran to the harbor waterfront, stopped at the railing. Below, black water splashed. Cold October wind tore at her hair. She could jump. Right now, end this whole nightmare. But her baby kicked in her belly, reminded her of itself, demanded to live. Catherine moved away from the railing. She slowly trudged home. She knew tomorrow she'd return to work, that she'd continue keeping the notebook, that she'd stay silent. Because she had no choice. None at all. October 14th, 1981, Wednesday. The notebook had 17 entries. One remained. The last, the 18th. Catherine worked like a robot. She barely talked to colleagues, barely smiled at patients. She just existed, day after day, hour after hour. Her belly had become huge. 7 months. 2 months until delivery. Dr. Keller promised that after the baby's birth, Catherine would get promoted to senior nurse. Documents already processed, everything ready. The price? Silence. Silence. Forever. Catherine knew she'd never be the same again, that she'd forever remain an accomplice to this nightmare, that 17 boys were a burden she'd carry to the end of her life. But she would stay silent. For her baby's sake, she would stay silent. On the evening of October 14th, a woman in labor was brought to St. Mary's Hospital. Young woman, first-time mother, 20 years old. Ann White. College student. Husband, graduate student. Young American family, bright future ahead. The delivery happened during the night of October 15th. A boy was born. 7 pounds, 5 ounces, 20.8 inches. Healthy, strong, cried immediately. In the morning, Dr. Keller came to the nursery. "This one," she said, looking at the white boy. "Number 18. The last." Catherine felt something break inside her completely. The last. This was the last baby in the program. After him, everything would end. She looked at the chief. "Dr. Keller, please," she whispered. "Don't. Please." "Hart, pull yourself together," Keller said coldly. "One more, and that's it. The program will be complete. You'll get your promotion, be able to raise your baby properly. Just a little bit left." "But he's healthy. He's completely healthy." "He has intracranial hemorrhage," Dr. Keller stated, "and he'll die. Tonight. Prepare everything necessary." She turned and left. Catherine remained standing by baby number 18's bassinet. He lay with clenched fists, sleeping. Peacefully. Calmly. He didn't know what awaited him. He just slept. Catherine felt something awaken inside her that she thought had died long ago. Rage. Hatred. Despair. She couldn't anymore. She wouldn't. She would do something. Anything. But what? All day Catherine thought, feverishly going through options. Call the police? Useless. Steal the baby? Where would she take him? Kill Dr. Keller? And what would that change? In the evening, when the hospital became quiet, Catherine went down to the basement. She opened the door to that small room where 17 containers stood. 17 boys she hadn't saved. She stood among them and cried. Quietly. Hopelessly. "Forgive me," she whispered. "Forgive me. I didn't want to. I couldn't. Forgive me." The containers stood silently. 17 white lids with numbers, from 1 to 17. Catherine went back upstairs. She went to the nursery. Boy number 18 slept in his bassinet. In a few hours, Dr. Keller would come. She'd enter with a syringe, and this baby would join the other 17. Unless... A thought came to Catherine. Terrible, insane thought. She could warn the mother, Ann White. Tell her the truth. Say her baby was in danger. Help her escape, right now, before Dr. Keller came. But if she did this, everything would be revealed. They'd put her in prison. Her baby would be born behind bars, and nothing would change. They'd continue the program, just find other children, another nurse. Catherine stood by the bassinet and looked at the sleeping infant. Her own baby kicked inside. 2 babies. One, someone else's, whom she could try to save. The other, her own, whom she'd lose if she tried to save the other. What to choose? Time passed. The clock hands approached midnight. Soon Dr. Keller would come. Catherine closed her eyes. She thought about 17 boys in the basement, about her baby in her belly, about the promotion, about silence, about a choice that couldn't be made right. And when she opened her eyes, the decision was made. October 15th, 1981, Thursday, midnight. Catherine quietly approached the room where Ann White lay. The young woman slept, covered with a blanket. Catherine gently touched her shoulder. "Mrs. White, wake up," she whispered. "Quiet. Don't scream." White opened her eyes, looked at Catherine with fear. "What happened? My baby." "Your baby's fine, for now, but you need to leave here immediately, both of you, right now." "What? I don't understand." "Listen to me carefully." Catherine grabbed her hand. "Something terrible is happening in this hospital. They're killing babies, healthy newborn boys. Your son is in danger. You must take him and leave. Now." White stared at her wide-eyed. "Are you crazy? What murders?" "I'm not insane," Catherine almost shouted, but restrained herself. "Listen. Over the past month and a half, 17 newborn boys have died here. All were diagnosed with intracranial hemorrhage, but they were healthy. They were killed, deliberately. Your son will be the 18th. "I'll call a doctor." White tried to get up. "You're sick. You need help." "Don't call a doctor." Catherine grabbed her hands. "The chief, she's a killer. She'll kill your son tonight. Please, believe me, I saw it. I know. I helped them. God, I helped them kill babies. But I can't anymore. I won't let them kill one more. Please, run. Run while you can." Something in Catherine's voice, in her feverish gaze, in the desperation with which she clung to White's hands, made the young woman stop. She peered into the nurse's face, trying to understand, was this truth or delirium? "If this is true," she said slowly, "why are you telling me? Why did you help them?" "Because I'm a coward," Catherine whispered. "Because they promised me a promotion. Because I'm pregnant myself and feared for my baby. Because I'm weak, pathetic. But I want to save at least one, at least the last one. Please." White looked at her for another long second, then nodded. "Where's my son?" "In the nursery. Come on, quick." They went to the nursery. 5 newborns slept there. Catherine led White to baby number 18's bassinet. "Here he is." White took her son in her arms, pressed him to herself. The boy woke, cried softly. "How do we get out?" "There's security at the entrance." "Through the service exit," Catherine said. "There's no guard there. Come on." They descended the stairs, quietly, trying not to make noise. Catherine carried White's bag with things. The young mother pressed the baby, wrapped in a blanket, to herself. They walked down the first-floor corridor, reached the service exit. Catherine opened the door. "Run," she whispered, "and never come back here. Tell your husband you wanted to go home, that everything's fine, that you didn't like the hospital, anything. But don't tell the truth. To anyone. It's dangerous, understand?" White nodded. She looked at Catherine with a strange expression, gratitude, fear, distrust, all together. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you." She went out into the night. Catherine closed the door and leaned against it with her back. She'd done it. She'd saved one. At least one. But what would happen now? Catherine returned to the nursery. The empty bassinet of baby number 18 gaped reproachfully. In an hour, Dr. Keller would come. She'd see the baby was gone. She'd understand what happened. And then hell would begin. Catherine opened the notebook. With a trembling hand wrote the last entry. 18. Date, October 15th, 1981. Baby absent. She closed the notebook and lay on the couch in the doctor's lounge. She couldn't go home. She had to be here when everything came out. She had to face it. Catherine put her hands on her belly. Her baby slept. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep too. One last time before the end. October 16th, 1981, Friday, 6 a.m. Dr. Keller entered the nursery at 6 a.m. She walked to baby number 18's bassinet, looked at the empty bassinet, froze. Then she turned and walked quickly to the doctor's lounge, flung the door open. Catherine sat on the couch. "Where's the baby?" the chief asked. Voice calm, but eyes 2 ice shards. "The mother took him," Catherine answered just as calmly. "I helped her leave." Dr. Keller was silent for a second, then stepped forward and struck Catherine across the face, hard, with all her strength. Catherine fell from the couch, hitting her head on the nightstand. "Do you know what you've done?" Keller screamed. "You've ruined the program. You've compromised all of us. I saved a baby." Catherine got to her feet, holding her belly. "One. At least one. Out of 18. Fool. Stupid fool. You think you changed anything? You think you're a hero?" Dr. Keller grabbed her by the coat. "I'll call them right now. They'll find you. Find her. Find the baby. And finish the program anyway. And you'll go to prison for a long time. And your baby will be born in jail. Do you even understand that?" "I understand." Catherine looked her in the eyes. "But I can't stay silent anymore. I can't live knowing I helped kill 17 children. Let at least one stay alive." Dr. Keller let her go, breathing heavily, staring out the window. "You don't understand," she finally said quietly. "You don't understand anything. This isn't just a program. This is—" She fell silent. "What?" Catherine asked. "What is it?" The chief turned to her. In her eyes was something terrible. Not anger, not rage. Something else. Fear? Despair? "There was no research," she said. "No research at all. Understand? No program to study hemorrhages. It's all a lie." Catherine felt the floor disappear from under her feet. "Then why? Why were you killing children?" "Because we were ordered to." Dr. Keller sank into a chair. All rage left her. Only fatigue remained. "Ordered from above. From Washington. 18 boys, firstborns, from specific families. They gave us lists, even gave birth dates. Everything was laid out. We only executed." "But why?" Catherine screamed. "Why kill children?" "I don't know," Keller shouted back. You think they explained to me? They told me it's national security. It's an order. Execute and stay silent, or you'll go to prison, you and your family, and everyone you love. I was trapped too, Hart. I didn't want to either, but I had no choice. She covered her face with her hands. I've saved children my whole life. My whole life. Then they ordered me to kill them. And I killed, because I was afraid. Because I thought, if not me, someone else. But at least I'll do it quickly, painlessly. They won't feel anything, they'll just fall asleep. God, Catherine whispered. God. They sat in silence. Outside the window, dawn broke. Portland was waking up. An ordinary October day was beginning. What happens now? Catherine asked. Now? Dr. Keller raised her head. Now I'll call. Report that the program's been disrupted, that baby number 18 disappeared, that you know everything. And then they'll decide what to do with us. With us? You think they'll leave me alive? The chief smiled bitterly. I know too much. I'm a witness. Such witnesses aren't left. I've known this for a long time, just hoped I could live at least until the program ended. Well, didn't work out. She stood, approached the phone on the desk, put her hand on the receiver. Stood like that for some time. Go, she said without turning around. Run, Catherine, while you can. Maybe you'll make it. Maybe they won't find you in time. Give birth somewhere far away, hide, at least try. What about you? I have nowhere to run. Dr. Keller picked up the receiver. I'm too old for running, and I don't want to anymore. I'm tired. At least you do what I couldn't. Save at least your baby. Catherine ran out of the office. She ran down the corridor, descended the stairs, burst outside. The Portland morning greeted her with cold wind and drizzling rain. She ran, not knowing where, just ran. From the hospital, from Dr. Keller, from 17 boys in the basement, from this whole nightmare. She ran to the harbor, stopped at the waterfront, breathing heavily, put her hands on her belly. Her baby kicked, reminding her of itself. Catherine knew they would find her, sooner or later, maybe in a week, maybe in a month, but they would find her. Such people are always found. But maybe she'd have time to give birth, have time to see her baby, have time to hold him in her arms at least once before they took her away. Maybe. October 17th, 1981, Saturday. Catherine didn't come home. She wandered the city for 2 days, slept at the bus station, in hallways. She knew they were waiting for her at home, and not just David. On the 3rd day, she couldn't take it. She called her husband from a payphone. Kathy, God, where are you? David's voice trembled with fear and relief. Everyone's looking for you. What happened? Dave, listen to me carefully, she said. Don't ask questions. Just listen. I need to leave the city. For a long time. Maybe forever. I can't explain why. Trust me. It's the only way to save our baby. What are you talking about? What saving? Kathy, you're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. But there's no other way. She took a deep breath. Have you been to the hospital? Talked to the chief? Yes, I went. Keller said you got sick, that you had a nervous breakdown, that you need to be put in a psychiatric clinic. She even wrote out a referral. Catherine smiled bitterly. So that's how. They'd declare her insane, put her in a mental institution, and there they'd either drug her or she'd just disappear. And no questions. Just another crazy pregnant woman who couldn't handle it. Dave, I'm not insane, she said firmly. I'm completely sane, but terrible things are happening at the hospital. I know about them, and that's why I'm in danger, understand? Silence on the line. What things? David finally asked. can't say over the phone. Not safe. Just trust me. I need money, documents, and your help. Kathy, her husband's voice wavered. I don't know what happened there, but if you're in danger, if our baby's in danger, I'll help, always. Tell me what you need. They agreed to meet in the evening on the outskirts of town at an old factory. David would bring money, documents, warm clothes, and a bus ticket. Anywhere. Away from Portland. That evening, Catherine waited for her husband in the shadow of factory buildings. It was cold, drizzling. She was freezing, wet, but didn't leave. Waited. David came alone, brought a bag with things. Here's money, he said, hugging her. All I could gather. Your passport, warm clothes, food, and a bus ticket to Seattle. Leaves tomorrow morning at 6. Seattle? Why so far? Because my cousin lives there. Remember Rachel? She's alone, never been married, has a big house. She agreed to take you in. I told her we have family problems, that you need to leave for a while. She didn't ask for details, just agreed. Catherine pressed against him, crying. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. I'll go with you, he said. Quit my job, everything. We'll leave together. No, Catherine shook her head. If we leave together, they'll find us faster. But if I leave alone, like I ran away from you, maybe they won't touch you. You'll be the deceived husband, victim of my breakdown. It's safer that way. I don't want to let you go. I don't want to leave either, but I have to. She took his hands. I'll give birth in Seattle. Then I'll write to you. We'll figure something out. Maybe in a year, when everything calms down, I can come back. Or you'll come to us. I don't know. But we'll be together. We will. They stood hugging in the rain for a long time. Then David left. Catherine remained alone with a bag in her hands and a ticket to Seattle in her pocket. October 18th, 1981, Sunday, 6:15 a.m. The bus left the Portland station. Catherine sat by the window watching the city float away. Gray houses, wet streets, gloomy sky. The city she loved. The city she was fleeing from. She didn't know that at that very moment at St. Mary's Hospital, Dr. Serafina Keller sat in her office and stared at the phone. She was supposed to call, report the program's disruption, but her hand wouldn't move. For the first time in many years, she felt relief. The program was disrupted. The 18th baby was alive, and that was right. That was the only right thing that happened during these terrible 2 months. Dr. Keller opened her desk drawer, took out a folder with documents, lists of families, children's birth dates. Everything laid out to the minute. 18 boys. 18 firstborns from specific families. She never learned why. Someone in Washington decided these children should die, and she executed the order. 17 out of 18. Keller took a lighter, set fire to the documents right in the metal wastebasket, watched as lists, names, dates burned, as evidence turned to ash. Then she finally picked up the receiver, dialed a number in Washington, waited for an answer. Program complete, she said evenly. All 18 samples obtained and preserved. Documentation in order. She lied. For the first time in her entire career, she lied to her superiors, and it was strangely easy. Excellent, the voice on the line answered. Material will be collected within a month. Seal the basement room. Remind all participants about non-disclosure agreements. Hospital will continue normal operations. Understood, Dr. Keller said and hung up. She sat in the silence of her office and thought about what she'd just done. She'd given Catherine Hart and the 18th baby a chance. Small, but a chance. When they came from Washington to collect the material, they'd find 17 containers instead of 18. There'd be questions. But she'd say one sample was spoiled, disposed of according to sanitary regulations. Documentation confirms. 18 entries. 17 present, 1 disposed of. They might not believe her, might start an investigation. But by then, Catherine would be far away. And baby number 18, he'd simply disappear into the vastness of this huge country. Dr. Keller stood, walked to the window. Rain drizzled outside. Portland was preparing for winter. She'd lived an honest life, saved children, then overnight became a killer. A government killer, but a killer nonetheless. 17 boys. That would stay with her forever. But at least one was saved. At least one would live. December 1981, Seattle. Catherine gave birth on December 15, 1981, at an ordinary city hospital. Boy, 7 pounds, 8 ounces, 20.5 inches. Healthy, strong. Cried immediately, loudly, demandingly. When they placed him on her chest, Catherine cried. She held her son and couldn't stop the tears. He's alive. He's healthy. He's with her. What will you name him? The midwife asked. Michael, Catherine said. Rachel, David's cousin, turned out to be a kind woman in her 40s. She lived in an old wooden house on the outskirts of Seattle, worked as an accountant at a local factory. Single, childless, she happily took in Catherine and the baby. Stay as long as you need, she said. The house is big, there's room, and I'm happy when there's a child's laughter in the house. Catherine wrote David a long letter, told him about the birth, about their son. Didn't write a word about what happened in Portland. Just wrote about the boy, how he looked like his father, how much she loved him. David responded 2 weeks later, wrote that he missed them, wanted to come, that everything was fine at work, nobody bothered him, that it seemed they'd already forgotten about Catherine. She was just listed as a nurse who'd quit voluntarily. He came in February 1982, saw his son, cried with happiness, holding tiny Michael in his arms. But after a week, Catherine felt something was wrong. David was tense, flinched at sudden sounds, constantly looked around on the street, as if expecting to be followed. Dave, what happened? She asked one night. Nothing, he answered, but his eyes looked away. Just tired from the trip. But Catherine knew. She saw that fear, the same fear that had lived in her since October. A month later, David went back to Portland, said he needed to work. They were expecting him, promised to return in summer. He came back only in fall, and Catherine immediately understood. He couldn't live here, couldn't leave Portland, his job, his life, couldn't constantly look over his shoulder, be afraid. They divorced in spring 1983, quietly, without scandals. David paid child support, sometimes came to see his son, but with each year the visits became rarer. Catherine worked as a nurse in an ordinary city clinic, raised Michael, lived quietly, inconspicuously. She didn't make friends, didn't talk about the past, just worked and raised her child. At night, she had nightmares. She saw 17 steel containers, heard infants crying, saw Dr. Keller's face with her tired eyes and the words, "I was trapped too." Catherine never learned why they killed the children and no longer wanted to know. She just wanted to live on, raise her son, work, forget. But forgetting didn't work. 17 boys were always with her. October 15th, 1990, Monday, 4 p.m. Investigator Carl Anderson sat in the district attorney's office and reread the notebook found in St. Mary's Hospital basement. 18 entries, 17 bodies in containers. 1 baby disappeared. The last entry in the notebook was strange. 18, date October 15th, 1981. Baby absent. What did this mean? The baby wasn't there? Or was there but then disappeared? And where did the 18th container go? Anderson requested documents, lists of women who gave birth in September-October 1981. Found all the mothers of the first 17 children. All received death certificates for infants from intracranial hemorrhage. All buried children. That is, thought they buried them. The 18th mother on the list, Ann White. Hospital documents indicated she left the facility voluntarily 24 hours after birth with the baby. No reason for leaving specified. No explanations. Anderson found White. She lived in Portland, worked as a math teacher at a regular school, married. Son, Paul, 9 years old, healthy, in 3rd grade. The investigator came to her home in the evening. Ann opened the door, and when she saw his badge, she paled. Mrs. White, I'm District Attorney Investigator Anderson. I need to ask you a few questions about the events of 1981. I don't know anything, she said quickly. Don't remember anything. May I come in? She reluctantly let him in. They sat in the kitchen. Anderson took out the notebook, showed it to her. Do you recognize this? Ann looked at the notebook and looked away. No. On the night of October 14th to 15th, 1981, you gave birth to a boy at St. Mary's Hospital. 24 hours later, you left the hospital voluntarily with the baby. Why? I just wanted to go home. Didn't like the hospital. Mrs. White, I know what happened, Anderson said gently. I'm not going to accuse you. I'm trying to understand what happened 9 years ago. I need your help. She was silent for a long time, looked out the window at the dark October street, then finally spoke. A nurse woke me up at night, young, pregnant. She said my son was in danger, that they were killing babies in the hospital, that I should run immediately. And you believed her? I saw her eyes, Ann said quietly. She was terrified. She was crying. She said she'd helped them kill other babies, but couldn't anymore. That my son would be the 18th. That she wanted to save at least one. What was the nurse's name? Catherine. I don't remember, or she didn't say her last name. What happened next? She led me out through the service exit, gave me my bag with things, said never to come back, not to tell anyone, said it was dangerous. And you stayed silent for 9 years? Ann nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I was afraid they'd come for us. Take Paul. I looked out the window every day. Were they coming? Every knock on the door seemed like the end. For 9 years, I lived in that fear. Anderson looked at her with sympathy. Your son is healthy? Yes, completely healthy. Normal boy, studies well, plays basketball. Alive, she sobbed. That nurse saved him. I don't even know if she's alive. Don't know how to thank her. Anderson returned to the prosecutor's office late in the evening. He pulled up all St. Mary's Hospital documents for 1981, found staff lists. Nurse Catherine Hart. Worked in maternity ward from 1978 to October 16, 1981. Quit voluntarily. Registered address, Park Avenue, Building 12, Apartment 45. Anderson went to the address the next morning. A man about 50 opened the door. David Hart? Yes, that's me. District Attorney Investigator Anderson. I need information about your ex-wife, Catherine. Hart invited him into the apartment. They went into a room cluttered with technical journals and blueprints. Kathy, Hart sighed heavily. We divorced a long time ago, in 1983. Where is she now? In Seattle. Lives there with our son. Son's 9 years old now. Do you have an address? Hart wrote the address on a piece of paper, handed it to the investigator. Did something happen? Is she in trouble? No, Just need information. Do you keep in touch? Rarely. I call sometimes, send money for our son. But Kathy, she doesn't want to communicate. She withdrew after leaving Portland, became a different person. Do you know what happened? Not completely. Hart shook his head. She said terrible things were happening at the hospital, that they threatened her. I saw her fear. She left in October 1981, and when I visited her in Seattle, she was broken, like she was carrying some burden. I tried to help, but she wouldn't let me. Said it was safer that way, that they shouldn't connect me with her. Did she tell you details? No, never. I asked, but she was silent. Just said she saw death, lots of death, children's death. Anderson thanked Hart and left. He had Catherine Hart's Seattle address in his hands. He could summon her with a subpoena, question her officially. She was a key witness, maybe even an accomplice. But something stopped him. He returned to the prosecutor's office, called his boss, the district attorney. Sir, on the St. Mary's Hospital case, I have important information. Found a witness who can... Anderson! The voice on the line was cold and brief. Case closed. Order from Washington. All materials classified. No investigations, no witnesses. But 17 children were killed there. Official version: improper storage of biological research materials, medical error. Chief physician committed suicide from remorse. Materials confiscated. Case closed. Do you understand, Anderson? Understood. Carl slowly put down the receiver. He sat in the silence of his office. Rain fell outside. October 1990. The USSR was collapsing. The Cold War was ending. A new era was beginning. But some secrets still remained under lock and key. Anderson opened the safe, put the notebook and all case documents inside. Tomorrow they'd come from Washington and take everything. He looked at the paper with Catherine Hart's address, then tore it into small pieces and threw it in the trash. This woman had paid enough. She'd lost her husband, career, home. She'd lived in fear for 9 years. But she'd saved one baby, the 18th. Let her live in peace. At least her. Seattle, October 1990. Catherine sat in the kitchen drinking coffee. Michael was at school, Rachel at work. The apartment was quiet. The radio was broadcasting news, something about Bush, about the economic crisis, about the Gulf crisis. The country was changing. The Cold War was ending. The old world was dying, the new one not yet born. Catherine had almost forgotten about 1981. Almost. 9 years was a long time. In 9 years, you can get used to a lot, even to nightmares that come every night. She worked at the clinic, raised her son, lived a quiet, ordinary life. Didn't tell anyone about the past, not even Rachel, who'd become almost family. Sometimes Catherine thought about Dr. Keller. Was she alive, still working at the hospital? Or had they removed her too, as an inconvenient witness? She thought about the 17 boys in the basement. Had they been found? Or did they still stand there, in steel containers in formaldehyde? She thought about the 18th boy, Paul White. Was he alive? Healthy? Did his mother know he was supposed to die that fall? The phone ring pulled her from her thoughts. Catherine picked up the receiver. Hello? Kathy, it's David. She was surprised. David rarely called, once every few months. Dave? Did something happen? No, everything's fine. Just wanted to warn you. An investigator came to see me. Asked about you. Catherine felt cold inside. An investigator? Why? Don't know exactly. Something about St. Mary's Hospital, about events of 1981. I gave him your address. Sorry. He showed his badge. I couldn't refuse. Catherine closed her eyes. So they found her. 9 years passed, and still they found her. She knew this day would come. Thanks for the warning, she said quietly. Kathy, what happened there? David's voice wavered. What happened fall of 81? I never asked, but now, better not to know, she answered. Honestly, Dave, better not to know. She hung up, sat in the kitchen, looked out the window. Fine rain fell outside. Seattle October was like Portland's, gray, cold, hopeless. They would come. Today, tomorrow, in a week, but they would come. Summon her for questioning. Ask questions. And what would she tell them? The truth? The truth was monstrous. 17 murdered infants. A federal program nobody knew about. Orders from Washington. Lists of families. All of it sounded like a madman's ravings. But the notebook existed. Catherine had seen it. She'd kept that notebook herself. 17 entries. And the 18th. Baby absent. Catherine stood, walked to the window. Children played outside. Ordinary American kids in jackets and jeans. They were building something from mud, laughing, pushing each other. Among them was Michael, her son. Alive, healthy, happy, 9 years old. He didn't know the price of his life, didn't know his mother was an accomplice to the murder of 17 children. And let him never know. October 17th, 1990. The investigator didn't come. Didn't come the next day, or the next week. Catherine waited, tensing at every knock on the door, every phone call. But nobody came. A month later, she called David. Dave, that investigator, did he come to you again? No, David answered. Didn't show up again. I thought he'd come to you. Nobody came to me either. They were silent. Maybe they closed the case, David finally said. Maybe decided not to dig up the past. Maybe. Catherine didn't believe it. But time passed and nobody came. Nobody summoned her for questioning, nobody called, as if they'd forgotten about her or decided to leave her alone. Catherine never learned that Investigator Anderson tore up the paper with her address, that he decided to give her a chance at a peaceful life, that he understood. This woman had already served her sentence. 9 years of fear, nightmares, guilt. That was her prison. Life gradually got back on track. The USSR collapsed, the Cold War ended. A new era began. Catherine continued working, raising her son. Years passed. Catherine Hart died in 2003. Lung cancer, fast-moving, cruel. She was 46 years old. David came to the funeral. Michael came with his wife and little daughter. Rachel cried like she'd lost a sister. They buried Catherine in a Seattle cemetery, in an ordinary grave. The headstone read, Catherine Hart, 1957 to 2003. Loving mother. Among her things, Michael found an old photograph. A young woman in a white nurse's uniform standing at the hospital entrance. On the building, a sign, St. Mary's Hospital. Portland, apparently late 70s. Mother was smiling, young, happy, not knowing what awaited her. Michael looked at the photograph and put it in a box. He didn't know what hid behind that smile. Didn't know what his mother went through. And would never know. Catherine took her secret to the grave. 17 boys remained with her forever. In every nightmare, every sleepless night, every look at her sleeping son. She'd paid in full. And maybe somewhere in the afterlife, if it exists, she met them. And they forgave her. Because she saved the 18th. Paul White, 34 years old, programmer, lives in Portland. Married, 2 children. Ordinary life of an ordinary person. He doesn't know that in fall 1981 he was supposed to be killed, that he was number 18 on someone's list, that he was saved by a nurse named Catherine who gave up everything for his life. His mother, Anne, never told him about it. She just loved him, raised him, rejoiced at every birthday. Every year on October 15th, she lit a candle in church for the souls of those who saved her son. She didn't know names, only knew that somewhere lived a young nurse who sacrificed everything. In 2015, when Paul turned 34, his mother finally told him the truth. They sat in the kitchen, drank coffee, and she talked about that night in the hospital, about the nurse with fear-mad eyes, about the escape, about the secret she'd kept for 34 years. Paul listened and couldn't believe it. "Mom, this sounds insane." "I know," Anne nodded, "but it's true. You were supposed to be killed, along with 17 other boys. I don't know why, don't know who gave the order, but that nurse, she saved you." "What was her name?" "Catherine. That's all I know." Paul tried to find information, searched online, in archives, in old newspapers, found mention of a discovery at St. Mary's Hospital in 1990, a brief note in a local paper. During renovations, improper storage of biological research materials discovered. Not a word about infants. Not a word about murders. He found that St. Mary's Hospital closed in 1992. The building now stands empty, awaiting demolition. He tried to find Catherine through hospital staff lists for 1981, but Catherine Hart died in 2003 in Seattle. Paul went there, found the grave, brought flowers. He stood at the grave of a woman he'd never seen and cried. Cried because he was alive, because he had a wife, children, life, and all of it, thanks to her. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you. For my life, for my family, for everything." He never learned why they killed the children. That secret remained buried in CIA archives. Maybe someday, many years from now, documents will be declassified. Maybe someone will learn the truth. Or maybe this secret will remain a secret forever. 17 infants in the basement of St. Mary's Hospital remained a mystery. Documents classified. Witnesses dead. Orders from Washington destroyed. Why they killed children? Nobody learned. Maybe it was a medical program, maybe political, maybe something even more terrible. The truth died with those who knew. But the 18th baby lives. Paul White lives in Portland, raising grandchildren, alive. Thanks to a nurse named Catherine, who on one October night in 1981 made a choice. A choice that cost her everything, but saved a life.